Hey, good morning. Good Sunday morning to all of you out there. I'm coming to you live from my back porch, having my Sunday coffee. My cup says wisdom. I hope you can see it. I picked wisdom because we're talking with Martha Beck this morning, who is one of the wisest people that I know. And she's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. I've tried to look through some of the happy Sunday, lovely Miss Kristen. Happy Sunday to all of you. I wanted to wait a minute because there was a global minute of prayer. So I wanted those who wanted to participate in that to be able to participate. And also for those who wanted to come participate in our Sunday morning coffee with Martha Beck, who wrote a beautiful piece this morning in the Sunday paper. Martha is the writer of so many incredible books that are inspiring and wise. She writes in the Sunday paper a lot. Thank God, a lot. Let me see if I can find her. Hold on. Let's look here now. Where are we, Martha Beck? Do we see Martha? There's Martha. I know I shouldn't touch my face, but I just washed my hands. So I printed out the Sunday paper today. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm great, Martha. Good morning. Good Sunday morning to you.
Thank you, same to you.
I just was telling everybody that everybody knows who you are. Well, you always introduce yourself. I'm Martha Beck. Who's Martha Beck? Which brings me so much amusement. And I said that I brought my coffee cup today that says wisdom on it in honor of you. I have these coffee cups that have all kinds of different sayings on them. And I chose wisdom because I get wisdom from my dear friend Martha. And this morning, Martha wrote in the Sunday paper, and I printed it out. I print out the Sunday paper and read it with my coffee. And your piece today, Martha, was called Love in the Time of the Coronavirus, but it's about so much more. It's about what each of us can do, and it's about the growth curve. It's about when we talk about things going viral, that while this disease is going viral, kindness can also go viral. Hope can go viral. What did you want people to take away from your essay this morning?
Well, the first thing is I know we're all scared. And trying to pretend we're not, that kept me awake for about 3 nights until I realized I just needed to admit that I was really scared and sort of do escalated self-care. So there's a little jolt of, yeah, take this seriously, please, to anybody who's not. And then there's, all right, the world has changed. As your beautiful article said this morning, like, we're never going back. It's not going back to the way it was. The caterpillar does not come out of the cocoon alive, but the butterfly does. And that's the last thing I want people to really take away, is that as everything breaks down in our lives, in our hearts, whatever, new things are being reborn. And we can choose to encourage the rebirth of more bravery, more emotional connection in a time of physical disconnection, more wisdom, more patience, more goodness, more of human goodness. And that kind of exponential growth curve can make us better long after we finally defeat this virus.
I know something you and I have discussed and is anxiety in our own lives. And I know you work with so many life coaches. You train life coaches to work with other people who struggle with just life decisions. How are you managing right now kind of the surge of anxiety that you're seeing with all the people who maybe work for you, all the life coaches that are out there?
Yeah. There's this old Chinese story about these very rigid officials who they're looking at a huge waterfall, and we've got to get the body out of the water to give it a burial, but we're going to get killed ourselves if we go in. And as they're talking, a little old man pops out of the water, dries himself off, very much alive, and walks off down the road. And they say, how did you survive that? And he says, it's not hard. You go up when the water goes up, and you go down when the water goes down. And the message of that is to stay very relaxed, paradoxically relaxed into letting things happen as they happen. But what happens emotionally then, there are surges of fear, and weirdly, those come along with denial. And a big part of our fear is the fear of the feelings we have to face as we lose our normalcy. So our fear is of the grief. Our fear is not just of the virus itself, it's of everything we're losing, financially, logistically, our plans for the summer, right? So by allowing yourself to flow into all the experience, the emotional experiences of grief, you just flow with the water of change, and that way it washes you around, but you're safe, and you can you'll survive and even thrive.
I know you're going to be offering a free course. I think it's called Thriving in Turbulent Times. What's it called, and how can people join you, Martha?
Yeah, it's a free masterclass. It's going to be on March 31st, and it's called Thriving in Turbulent Times, and you can register at marthabeck.com. Again, free, because God knows, let's spread as much through the internet that can go viral to comfort, calm, and inform us as we suppress transferring other things.
And what are you going to teach us in that class about thriving in turbulent times? I like the name of that because for so many people, as I wrote today, I've talked to so many people whose entire livelihood is going down the drain. They're having to fire people that have worked with them for years. And it's severing relationships, even though people kind of understand it, but they don't. People I read some figures about the millions of people in unemployment lines or will be applying for unemployment. So how do we thrive in these, quote, turbulent times when you've just lost your job? You don't know where your paycheck's coming from.
Yeah, the first thing, speaking of training coaches, we talked about this cycle of change. When something hits your life and it changes it, you go into something we call square one. And I said that thing about the caterpillar. When a caterpillar goes into its cocoon, it doesn't just grow wings, it melts, it completely dissolves. So what we always tell people when they've just been hit by a change, and we've all just been hit by this one, is allow yourself to come apart in the faith that after that caterpillar dissolves, it triggers something called an imago cell, and it starts rebuilding the caterpillar into a butterfly. Using from soup, the caterpillar is just liquid, and then it makes itself into a butterfly. If we can self-care and take things very moment to moment, as you said in your article today, breath to breath, if necessary, one day at a time might be way too long. But if we can go breath to breath, if we can cocoon to breathe, and in this case, cocoon to stay safe, then eventually the grieving process washes away everything that was rigid in our lives, and then something new is born that has never occurred to us before. And that's how we thrive. We allow ourselves to go into the dissolution. And this is an act of faith, but I've coached hundreds, thousands of people, and it always happens. If you surrender to the dissolution, something comes up from underneath and reestablishes ways of being with people, reestablishes ways of making money, establishes ways of following political leadership. We're seeing breakdowns in every social institution. Just remember that whatever dissolves, a butterfly can come out of it.
How do you feel you've evolved in a way this past week? Do you feel yourself changing in your own home?
Oh, minute to minute.
Minute to minute.
Yeah. I've been through a couple of things in my life that felt somewhat similar. I mean, different traumas. And a lot of us have those to look back on. And now I'm so glad to be older because I no longer feel like, oh my God, a truck just hit my life and this shouldn't happen. It's more like, oh, a truck just hit my life. Okay, I've been down this way before. Not with this exactly, but honestly, turn to older people because we've taken some hard knocks, and there's a world of difference between saying this shouldn't be happening and I don't know what to do, and this shouldn't be happening and I can relax. My favorite poem for this time is Hafez saying, "Trouble, then stay with me, for I am not."
Can you repeat that? Little people are here having a little trouble hearing you, Martha. Can you get a little closer to the mic? That's Hafiz who just said, right? Hafiz.
Um,
Can you hear her now?
can you hear me now?
That's a little bit better, I think. Yes, louder. People are saying.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you. I was just saying, you know, if you can moment to moment, relax into whatever you're feeling to the point where you get to peace. I heard a really good system. If you can't handle what's going on, accept the present moment. Allow it to be as it is, not the next moment, this present moment.
Okay.
When you reach acceptance, you can hold, if you can hold it, you eventually go to peace. If you can find peace, and you can, then you can go to gratitude. And from gratitude, you can go to actually experiencing joy again, even in these hard times. But you have to allow yourself to fall into it. And I was saying my favorite quote is from Hafiz, who said, "Troubled, then stay with me, for I am not." And if we become that person, then we can spread peace.
I think that's so beautiful. And Martha and I talk a lot about poetry. Hafiz, I talk a lot about Rumi, Mary Oliver. There's some really great poets that are out there that when you go to read them now, they can really bring inspiration to the present circumstance. And I think we all have to go and find inspiration kind of wherever we can get it. Several people had said to me, you know, what should I do? Can you talk about what we should do if we actually have lost our jobs in a concrete way? Do you know what we should do? We live in a small town. Other people have said, I can't, you know, work with my grandchildren anymore. I used to be the primary babysitter, and now I can't even touch them. What should I do?
Yeah, well, the thing about an absolute shock is you go into triage mode. You stop the bleeding as much as you can in the present moment. I mean, this is what I'm doing for sure. You basically, you have to pull in your attention and, like, literally, if you've been in a car accident, the first thing you do is stop bleeding locally. Then we're going to have to start interacting with one another for mutual support. This is going to show us how much we rely on interdependent behavior, and we're already seeing it. But we're a very wealthy species, like we have, especially in this country, we have a lot. And as this goes forward, we are going to have to share a lot. Yeah. And there will be new economic structures that come out of that, and they are still not being born. We're still stopping the bleeding. But in the past, every time the U.S. has gone through a huge shock like this, there's been an outpouring of new ways of sharing wealth, creating business, and I'm sure that's going to follow.
I like the mention of Invisible Hands, this organization that started to bring food to seniors who were homebound and without touching them. And so there are a lot of organizations that you mentioned that are stepping up into an open space, whether it's in terms of bringing food to seniors who might be homebound. We published in the Sunday paper today a list of things that neighbors can do. And these are important. I don't think we should say, like, well, it's, you know, calling your neighbor, isn't that important? Yeah, it is. It might be the only call your neighbor gets. You know, knocking on the door and keeping some distance, but checking in on a neighbor might be the only check-in the neighbor gets. I have two neighbors that are in their 90s. So I think these things that in the past we may have viewed as small or inconsequential, today might be life-changing or life-altering or life-reassuring.
Yeah, that one call that somebody gets. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard, but I've worked with so many people who've had personal crises. Now we're all having crises at the same time, but so many people tell me it was the one phone call that I got. It was the one person who looked into my eyes. One of the things I wanted to say is when you're teleconferencing with your friends and family, look straight into the camera so that they can see your eyes, because that's a very, very deep biological thing that you can give. Eye gaze is so important that babies die if they don't get it. And we have the capacity to see each other's eyes, and we need to use it. It's like little things like that is what we're having to rely on now, but they work.
I love that, because that's so true. Everything we have learned about attachment that it's when a mother looks into a baby's eyes, or a father or a grandparent or a loving caregiver, that makes the difference in whether somebody is securely attached in life or insecurely attached. Looking into someone's eyes, as Martha just said, when you FaceTime. I've tried to start FaceTiming with my children that aren't with me, with friends. I think, as a couple of us said last night, thank you, Steve Jobs. Where we can connect visually with one another, really, because somebody created this. It's really quite extraordinary. Imagine where we would be if we can't connect like this.
Well, my father lived through the Spanish flu. He was 8 years old, and the only way they had news of people on their block is they would look out the windows to see which houses had coffins being taken in. And they just had to stay alone. And having that in mind, I was born when he was older, so we have this full 100 years. In that 100 years, we have become able to turn this into the event that unites humanity, as you wrote last week. The thing that turns us all as human beings toward a common purpose. And we have the technology to make that a shared communal experience. It could be we talked about it exploding, the virus exploding. This could be the biggest explosion of cooperation and human kindness that our species has ever seen.
What scares you about this, and what brings you hope?
What scares me is that people are so scared. Really, truly, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. That's not true. We have things to fear. But fear itself is actually the worst of it, and it makes people behave in selfish ways. It makes us forget to reach out. And I'm as vulnerable to it as anybody. Yeah. But reaching home, going to acceptance and to peace and to gratitude and even to joy in small moments, you'll find you start naturally reaching out. You start naturally thinking what you can do. And through that, you'll come to think of a way of making a living and getting through this crisis. So taking that one deep breath, letting it out, and becoming calm in this moment takes away 90% of what scares me.
And what brings you hope? What has inspired? What helps you get up in the morning and look at the day with eyes of hope?
One of the things is that we have, as a human species, constructed this communication. We are a global village. And yes, there are people that are doing terrible things, silly things, to spread the virus. But then there are so many others who are bringing hope, love, and my favorite, humor. I wrote about how people who survive disasters are the ones who joke about it.
Yeah.
So, and we can tell jokes to each other. Yay! Wow, we have it so much better than anyone in any previous plague.
Martha, there's questions here. Now I'm just gonna see, so bear with me because I don't really know how to do this. So there's some questions for you. So hold on, let me see. All right, here. Lorena 3 says art journal every day. She does a daily run, calls friends, saving life, other people. These are suggestions, I guess. It says questions. Melissa Meyer says meditating, walking, organizing, cooking, a lot of writing and journal, talking on FaceTime, Zoom calls with lots of friends and cocktails, a lot of games, taking care of my newborn, family sitting by the fire, setting up a garage gym, listening to audio. These are more comments, I guess.
Yeah.
Maria, would you recommend a person journaling thoughts and feelings to cope? Okay, Martha, would you recommend a person?
100%. That's how I've coped with almost everything that I've gone through. And then later you can write a book based on your notes.
That's true.
I'd really like you to try this little trick of writing to a hero, writing to whatever God you believe in, writing to your own higher self, and then writing a question in your journal, and then pausing, and then becoming that wiser self, asking your frightened self to step aside and let the wiser self hold the pen and write a message. I did that with
repeat that, explain that a little bit. Can you explain that again? I love that.
Okay, I did this recently with a group of people online. First, you have a journal and a pen.
Okay.
Then you just notice your scared self. and give it love and honor and ask it to step aside for a few minutes. You can write a question then, a question that you want answered about your own life, about your loved ones, whatever.
Okay, so let's just say that the scared person is like, I just lost my job. Will I ever get my job back? What's going to happen to me financially? So that scared person, that realistic person writes that question down and then asks that scared person to step aside.
Yes, you did that much better than I did. Thank you. So you ask the scared person to step aside, and they will if you promise them they can come back. And then you feel yourself become your wisest person, your wisest spirit, and write an answer to the question. Reread it and then rewrite it. Pretend you're, a Mother Mary or Gandhi or somebody.
Pretend you're Martha Beck. Pretend you're Martha Beck. Pretend that you're the counselor that you like to go to or the therapist. Pretend you're that person.
Yeah, Liz Gilbert, my friend, writes to love, and love writes back to her, and whatever works best for you. I've been doing this my whole life, and you get answers, and those answers work. I lived my life on the answers that came to me in times of crisis, and writing is how I did it. Yeah.
Oh, Carolyn Lacker is saying, I love that approach to journaling. That is true. That's a wise piece of advice from the wise Martha Beck too, actually, because I think something that you've also taught me is that we all have multiple kind of versions of ourselves, right? We have strong versions of ourselves. We have scared little girl or little boy versions of ourselves. And I think this is also important, as a mom of two sons, recognizing, and sister of four brothers, recognizing that men also show their anxiety and their depression and their fear in different ways. And I think so often we're all looking for somebody to lean on. And so we lean on the person that we perceive to be really strong, who isn't scared at all, but probably is a little bit. Probably is.
And can become more aggressive. I mean, women are trained to act more depressed when they're scared, and men are trained to act more angry. And so very often, and women can act angry when they're scared too, but if somebody's aggressive or they're processing it in a different way from you, rather than judging or like fighting back if someone's acting terribly, quote Hafiz, just look them in the eyes and say, troubles, then stay with me, for I am not. Make yourself become that wise person, because we all have it in us, and by inviting each other to share that peace, we spread it.
My friend Mark Brackett, who wrote a book called Permission to Feel, a new book, he said to me recently, when he talks a lot about how to get families to work together to talk about feelings, and he said something that stayed with me that I thought was great, is to, when you're in trouble or anything, imagine your best version of yourself, the best version that you could imagine yourself to be, and then bring that person to the table when your kid is talking back to you, when your kid, somebody wrote to me last night, oh my God, I'm having such a hard time. My college age son is at home. He just screamed at me because he wanted to bring friends over. I told him no. Several other people said, I'm stuck in my house with my wife and my kids, and we're getting to know each other really well, but it's rough. It's rough. And people are in closed quarters with people that they're used to not seeing all day long and being with all day long, and kids who have a lot of energy all day long. And I thought that Mark's suggestion to just close your eyes and try to bring the best version of yourself to the situation, even if it's not the version that's sitting there right then and then. That's your wisest self, so to speak.
Right. And that requires energy, and you need to recharge from it. So that's, it's amazing to do that. One thing we're doing in our family is we've started shouting when we're washing our hands. We're saying, washing our hands. I have a son who's 32 with Down syndrome, so he didn't really get why he had to wash his hands. But we all made a family thing out of washing hands. We all remind each other when we come in or pick up a package, washing hands. And after somebody has been strong to the group, another thing you can do is say, cocooning now, and go pick up that journal and write your fear and pain that you've had, because you've had to bring a bunch of energy. Now ask for it to be replenished in you, and invite it, open to it, and it comes. And that way you can keep being strong for others.
I love that. I'm cocooning now, washing hands now, journaling now. A lot of people on here also are saying, that they're alone and that they're scared. I think that's one of the reasons we're doing these conversations is to kind of say we're home together, even if it's virtually. I've always felt calmed in my life by Martha, and rarely are we in the same room. Rarely are we in the same room. It's knowing that she picks up the phone, knowing that I can call. I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, just knowing that they have someone that they can call and someone will pick up the phone. So I want to thank Martha so much for joining us on a Sunday morning. Her piece in the Sunday paper today is really beautiful. It's very inspiring, very moving. She's got her course that is free. It is available. So you go to marthabeck.com and you can sign up for a masterclass with Martha called Thriving in Turbulent Times. That's right?
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
That's it. And Martha works a lot and trains a lot of people to become life coaches, to become pathfinders, as she says. We both often talk about, life coach isn't really the right word, but actually right now it is the right word. Now it is the right word because we all need a coach now. We need a coach to get through this thing called life that is kind of scary. So if you're interested in maybe coming out of this and becoming a life coach or thriving in turbulent times, becoming the butterfly, all of those things I'm sure Martha will address in her course. March 31st, Thriving in Turbulent Times. And you can follow Martha, the Martha Beck, right? I saw here, Truest Self said, Wayfinders Unite. She calls them Wayfinders, Pathfinders, life coaches. What are the other words?
Helpers, guides, people struggling just as hard as you, but maybe one step further on.
Yes.
I got on the phone and told 1,000 life coaches the other day, people, this is what we train for. Let's do it. It really is. It's about coping with change and healing people from great wounds. And let's get in this together.
I love that. This is what we've trained for. This is a moment we've all trained for. The Citizens Brigade, the Pathfinders, the Wayfinders, we're in this together. Martha Beck, thank you. I love you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom this morning. God bless you. And thank you all for joining. Bye-bye.